soccer fans. We hope you've got your cups filled with some tea because our cup of tea is ready to speak all things women's soccer with you. My name is Megan Warner and I'm joined by my co-host Harlie Ford. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well. I finally have brewed a cup of tea for our cup of tea. It's a chai,
Ooh, very nice.
vanilla chai. It's very, very good. A little bit of sugar in it, a little bit of milk. Ooh,
I just
perfect.
got my water. I didn't have time to do any brewing this morning, so a
Yeah.
little bit jealous, but maybe I should just wake up earlier.
Yeah, the English one here doesn't have a cuppa. It's tough.
So let's get it started by speaking the latest and greatest in women's soccer, and I mean the Olympics. That's what we're focusing on today because it has just been so exciting. What did you think of the overall tournament?
I think it was a reflection of just how much women's soccer has grown. I don't think there was really a team in this tournament that didn't put out their very best effort, and everyone's just like athleticism and also like the style of play that was exhibited across the tournament it was really incredible. It was super cool to see that, there were teams like challenging the best of the best in this tournament, giving it athletes that are common names in households a run for their money. So I think it was a really, really great showing of just how incredible the movement towards bettering women's soccer is. So that's overall.
100%. And I also love, I've just seen so many people watching these games, and we're in America right now. These games have been super early, but people are like,
yeah. My mom gets up. She gets up early anyway because she has to go to work. But she gets up early. Like that first day, it was at 4:30. She was up bright and early, texting us game updates.
I absolutely love it. So we did have a winner yesterday. The gold medal matchup between Canada and Sweden was absolutely incredible. I think Sweden dominated in that first half, but Canada ended up winning gold on PK. So we'll take it all the way back. And in the 34th minute, Sweden went ahead through Blackstenius, who has been a huge force of brilliance this tournament. And so Sweden went in 1-0 up at halftime. And then in the second half, Jessie Fleming equalized from the spot, a penalty in the 67th minute that Christine Sinclair went down. After a VAR review, it was deemed a penalty, and it was tense. It was a bit like, are they going to give it? I thought it was a penalty personally, but it was definitely a close shout. At first I was like, that's a penalty. Then ref didn't call it. I was like, maybe it's not. Anyways, it was given, and Jessie Fleming was calm, composed, collective, slotted it home. And Canada then, they found some momentum and they looked very strong. That was the Canada that we kind of all knew and were waiting to see. Mm-hmm. To get all the way through to extra time. And Sweden, they were the ones to watch in the extra time for me because they had some very close chances. I'm talking agonizingly close, attack after attack after attack. But Canada held on, some solid performances in the defense and goalkeeper, and they took it all the way to the shootout, which, again, was epic. We had, a crazy amount, and Canada eventually went on to win the shootout 3-2. Stephanie LeBay and Julia Grosso played heroes. LeBay in goal made some incredible saves, and Grosso took away that winning penalty. I mean, it was everything you want, but at the same time, I saw somebody tweet saying, can we just give them both gold? And I was like, I kind of agree. This is such a good match, and both teams honestly do deserve it. But Canada making history with that gold, so happy for them. And we definitely want to give a special UWS alumni shout out to Stephanie LeBay. She spent 4 seasons with the New England Mutiny and 1 season with Calgary Foothills, and absolutely killed it in goal for the Canadian. We love to say it, but it really does just show how great the level is in the UWS.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just the sheer, it just, I don't know. It's so cool to see that, the where we are playing is reflected on the national stage. That is such a cool feeling. And also just adding on to, the performance between Canada and Sweden, there was just a high jump competition where the 2 athletes got to share gold. And I was like, that we don't get that luxury, do we? I do think that both teams absolutely earned it. I mean, obviously goals are goals, and when you come down to it, Canada did what they were supposed to do, but it was definitely it was a game that was awe-inspiring. It makes me want to be a better soccer player.
I really like how, like, at least in the Olympics, you know, second place gets a silver medal, and you get to say that, and like that's so cool to actually be able to take home something, you know. Whereas World Cup or Euros, it's just like, oh,
like
at least you have that medal, you know, and they should all be so proud of themselves for the performances they put in, but also what they did for women's soccer.
Yeah, absolutely.
We also saw a great match on Thursday. Harlie, I know you want to talk about that one. You've got the shirt on, and I love it.
Always. Yeah, so it was a 7-goal thriller with the U.S. women's national team in Australia, and it was a close game. It was not easy. I mean, at first, it was Megan Rapinoe and Carly Lloyd. They scored 2 goals each. Carly Lloyd made history as she earned her 312th cap, moving into second place on the all-time appearance list for the U.S. women's national team, as well as soccer overall between men and women. She's played a lot of soccer. It's amazing. So her 2 goals moved her to be America's all-time leading scorer at the Olympics with 10 goals, passing Abby Wambach, and is the first U.S. women's national player to score in 4 different Olympics. That's amazing. I think it was a really great game. Like the first half, I think the U.S. controlled it, but, you know, Australia, they were not going to lay over and die easy in this one. They, you know, as we were talking about, like the cool thing about the Olympics is that you do get to come home with hardware if you don't place first. Like they're first, second, and third. You get a medal for those placements. So that match meant something. And I think it meant something very significant to the U.S. women's national team. Like they didn't want to go out on a note where there's just like they've struggled so much through this tournament and to not even have anything to show for it. I think that's something they really, really were looking forward to. And I was reading interviews about it, and something that kept coming up was like this talk about how the team had like lost their joy of playing. Megan Rapinoe had said it, like there's just like no joy out on the field, like they don't know where it went. And after that match, like they were able to say like we found our joy again. You know, we found like why we love what we're doing, and that was really nice to see that like they were able to overcome like this personal team issue, and also just like a player issue of figuring out like why are we here, you know, like what is important about what we're doing today. And even though it wasn't the gold which they were desperately searching for, I think everyone always is, they were very, very proud to have that bronze, and I'm proud to have it too. You know, like that's a medal. It goes towards the count. It keeps us number 1 in the Olympics. Although, like, China's got plenty of gold. It's fine.
I know. It's like it always goes up and down between those two.
I know. I mean, like, oh man, I don't know if you've been like watching the diving competitions, but China's got that on lock. That stuff's crazy. They're like 14, and like, it's the most wild thing.
Yeah, we had the pentathlon on, and I was just like mind blown at the fact that these athletes can compete in such a wide variety of sports. I'm like, how do you even train for that many things?
No idea. It's insane.
Yeah, it is crazy. So we have another UWS alumni shout out, this time to Katarina Macario, who was a part of the US national team. She previously played with LA Galaxy Orange County and was actually the MVP at the 2019 championship games. So that is just showing, you know, within just a few years, the growth that she has experienced from starting in the UWS. Well, I mean, obviously she played before, but from going from the UWS
first
to the national team, like that is crazy. And the opportunity is there. And that's why, you know, we are such advocates for this incredible league, because we can see the results. Like you are producing players who are making it all the way to the Olympics. I mean, that is just incredible.
Yeah, they have the capability to perform on the world stage. I mean, what more could you ask for from a league? You know, it's amazing. And the fact that it is grassroots, like as far as I know, like players are not getting paid to be in the UWS. Like this is something that is born specifically from like, I know it'd be cool, but like this is born specifically from like a love for the game. And it's really, really cool to see that reflected. It literally the biggest stage that you could play on. It's amazing. But speaking of just like big stages and how intense competitions can be, and trying to find a sense of calm or recenter yourself on why you like to play this game or why you're doing the things that you're doing, today's hot topic is about mental health. specifically like what we're going through as soccer players, but also kind of like a broader scheme of like just athletes, athletic mental health. So I've written sort of kind of like a little monologue. So just to like be very clear about what we're laying down here. So I do think it's clear that mental health has been emphasized throughout the Olympics. Without a question, I'm sure everyone's thinking of Simone Biles and, you know, the struggles that she's gone through. But everything that she's gone through in Tokyo, regardless of speculation, like she captured a bronze on the women's balance beam. And as we were talking about, a medal is amazing, you know, and everything that she had gone through, everything that she's been transparent about, like her struggles to go out there and finish the way that she did. It clearly like meant the entire world to her. And then I think something that really, really illustrated just how important that moment was is that her teammates were like crying in the stands. And that was something I was just like, oh man, that really meant something. It was beyond like athleticism, like being able to make that finish. I think spoke volumes about just, you know, her ability to be an athlete, and you know that was just a huge moment. In terms of that, like there is a sweeping wave of prioritization for mental health, and I think Biles really helped start that conversation, because like mental health is just as important as physical health, and in a lot of ways for some athletes like it's more important. The resources to take care of our own bodies, like those resources are boundless. If our muscles are aching, we know to dunk ourselves in ice baths. We know to get like the Theraguns and do massage therapy. If we're feeling queasy or nauseous after a game like that we've played in the dead heat, we know, oh, okay, we're dehydrated, we're suffering like something from heat, so let's rehydrate, let's cool down, let's rest. And then even ahead of like college seasons, we go through training specifically designed to strengthen our own bodies so that like we're not injuring ourselves in the upcoming matches. So we expand our stamina, we extend our endurance, and we build our ability to withstand physical pressures of the game. So these are all the resources that we know and have for like taking care of our bodies. This is something that is ingrained into athletes from like day one, you know, take care of your body. But when it comes to,
every team essentially has an athletic trainer,
exactly.
It's like at some point that is super accessible to you, and that's like a priority is on your coaching staff. You want to have that person who can do that physical recovery. But
Absolutely.
how many teams have maybe a specific psychologist dedicated to the mental side of the game? Very few. But even a person that people feel that they can go to, maybe, you know, your coach, have they been able to create that relationship with players where they can speak to them about the mental side of the game, or are they just kind of there to instruct the game of soccer?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, trying to find that relationship where like you feel as an athlete, you're going to be able to, you know, be honest and frank about the way that you're feeling. I don't think that's a resource that's exactly like very prevalent, at least in the US. I mean, I don't know if that's something that, you know, you experience abroad, just having like better resources for mental health. But I know that in America, it's not what it should be. And also like in terms of that, like there's just like a vacuum of knowledge. Like there's just like, there's so many differing opinions on the subject, like what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. And it's just like, there's no real resource to that. So on the field, when we are like being physical athletes, like we are warming up together, we are playing together, we cool down together. Those are all things that we're doing together as a group. But what about when we are on our car rides home and we are by ourselves and all we can do is just think about the mistakes that we made, or we can't get past something that happened during the game or even before games? When expectations and the pressure to perform is just like keeping us from feeling like from trusting our ability to be an athlete. You know, what are we supposed to do in those situations? What's the protocol? And that's something that is a serious conversation that needs to be had just as much as like being able to do weight training. So just like in terms of that, you know, like for me, I have a pretty good idea of like what we should be doing under pressure and stuff like that. But like for you, Megan, like when it comes to like coming onto the pitch and then also leaving it, what are some things that like you do to try and stay calm? And if you aren't able to, like what are techniques that you've used to at least recenter yourself and ground yourself before like things get too out of control?
Yeah, I'm definitely the kind of player that maybe kickoff is at 7 o'clock, but in the evening. But for me, I'm thinking about it like pretty much all day, before the game. I'll kind of be watching maybe a soccer match or maybe just even some highlights of a player that I kind of feel like I want to try to emulate in the game, and I'll watch the videos, and that kind of helps me with my mental preparation to just get really focused on what I want to try and do. And then heading into the game, I'm not the kind of player that likes to get super crazy in the locker room, get like super hyped listening up to music and around. And I honestly, sometimes I think like I admire the fact that you guys can do that. But then other times I'm like, please, like I need to focus. So I kind of keep to myself a bit more, and I just want to think about the game, and I want to think about like just how I can be the best player on the pitch. Other players, and it's so individual, and it's really amazing that somebody can do one thing and somebody can do something totally different and then step on the field and be able to be incredible and put in an amazing performance. Why it's so individualized, and I think that's why we've got so much different opinions going into it, because everybody is so different. But yeah, for me, I'm definitely take my time, think about the game like a lot, think about what I want to try and do. Definitely take it back to the simple things. I'm always like, okay, like maybe 3 things that I want to focus on during the game. Like, okay, I want to get some more shots off. Like last game, I don't think I had enough shots. Like first 10 minutes, keep things simple. Like play to the outside backs when you're trying to play wide rather than playing to the outside forwards. Like very specific things is kind of what goes through my mind. And then in the heat of the game, I feel like my mind, I'm just thinking about the game. Like I don't get too distracted. So that kind of bodes well for me. Like as soon as they come off the field, maybe I'll go straight to the coach and I'm like, this is what we need to do. Like I just like only think about the game. But then when it comes to the high pressure moments, maybe a free kick or a penalty, that's when I really have to slow myself down, slow my breathing down, just take some time. And I definitely use visualization techniques. Even when I'm practicing my free kicks, like I will take a solid like 10, 15 seconds where I'm just thinking before I actually strike the ball. So that's kind of some things that I do. What about you, Harlie?
Well, before that, like, can you like expand a little bit more on what visualization means? Because like I know, but like maybe someone listening, like they'd be like, oh, wait a second, I could do that.
Okay, so I feel like when I first kind of heard about it, I thought like that's really strange. Like, so I set the ball down. Like I'm just gonna say, for example, I take free kicks because that's what I like to do personally, a lot more than a penalty. So I set the ball down, take a few steps back, and I set myself in the position that like I'm going to strike the ball from, like how I would usually. But instead of just waiting for the referee to blow the whistle and kicking it where I think it should go, I'm standing there and I'm actually thinking and in my mind picturing where this ball is going. So I'll decide, okay, from this range, am I shooting or am I playing it to a teammate? What kind of ball am I putting in? If I'm shooting, or whichever one, let's just say in this instance I pick, I'm shooting. Where am I putting the ball? I see this ball going into the top right-hand corner. Then I'm picturing me striking the ball, bending it around the wall if there's a wall, and putting it into that top corner. That's all I'm picturing in my head for those few seconds. And I'm taking nice deep breaths and I'm just picturing the actual way I'm striking the ball and seeing the ball go into the net. And then referee will blow the whistle and I'm still taking time to think about that. And I think that's a really key thing for me, because I've done it before where referee blows the whistle and then I'm like, okay, now I have to kick it. And no, like you've just wasted all that time you've spent calming yourself down, because don't let somebody else tell you when you're going to be able to do it. Obviously, don't take too long after the referee blows the whistle, but you need that time to calm yourself. And I think for me, visualization has definitely improved the level of my free kicks.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's so important. Like the whistle does not always mean go. This does not mean like immediately you gotta take this kick. So that's super, super important to remember. Something that like I do, and I think this relates to like visualization and also like the things that we do on the pitch, is just like take account of the things that you do have control of. And at the end of the day, pretty much the only thing that you get to control is you. You don't get to control the other team. You can't control your coaches. You can't control the refs. Once the ball has left your foot, you can't even really control the ball either. Like, you have no say over what's going to happen to it, except like the laws of physics. That's all that gets to say that, you know? So really, really focus on, you know, the things that you have control over, which is you. And then, you know, the things that you're experiencing, you do have control over those things, even if you're feeling a little bit out of whack or stressed. You know, realizing that, okay, if I have made a mistake, then I can take this as an opportunity to learn and grow. This is something that is not going to define my entire history as a player. Like, if we make a mistake, that doesn't shatter everything that we've built to this point. Like, it's something that helps us grow as players. So understanding that's super important. And then also, you know, taking control of your own emotions, you know, taking a second and taking account of what you're going through. Like, if it is getting to be too much, like, understand that, as players, like, it's important to perform, but it's also important to treat yourself as a person. And if you need that moment, like that second, like, take it. And sometimes that means that, like, you have to step off, and that's okay. Like, again, that doesn't define you as a player. It just means that, like, you need a second to, like, recenter yourself, because you are more important than, like, being an athlete. Like, that's, like, athlete is a huge part of our identities, but also, like, we're still human beings and we can experience struggles on the field. And just, like, talking about the things that, like, do stress us out on the field. So there are things that impact you on the field, which is just, like, the way that the game is going, play time, maybe, like, your teammates haven't been the best to you. Before games, like, if you are an athlete who's in school still, you're trying to pair performance in your academics and then performance on the field, and that's a balance that is really difficult for some people. So trying to figure out how to balance that life, like, that's a huge stressor. And then also, talking about, like, your identity as an athlete. You know, sometimes, I mean, this happened to me during my time at college. Like, I connected a lot of my self-worth to, like, my performance, and I felt like I wasn't doing enough as an athlete to, like, be worthy of, like, playtime or anything like that. And it felt like I wasn't being like, not being a good enough athlete also meant that I wasn't being a good enough person. And that was, like, really, really hard to, like, get through, because, like, all I ever try to do is just, like, be there for my teammates and do everything that my coaches asked me to do. Like, whatever it is, even that if that means that I have to ride the bench, like, it's what I'll do. But it was difficult to feel like I wasn't doing enough in that way. And the way that I got through that was, like, I did talk to my family. I did talk to my teammates. I reached out to the people that I knew, like, truly cared about me, and they helped me, like, figure out, okay, no, you're fine. Like, your performance as an athlete does not define you as a human being. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah. So that's, like, you know, those are some things that I know can be stressors. But, like, for you, Megan, like, what are some things that, like, you feel can be, like, big stressors in your time as an athlete?
A big stressor for me, like during the game, is if I hear like a coach on the sideline shouting, and they don't even have to be really shouting at me. Like, if I just hear them, you know, yelling a lot, it makes me feel really quite angry. Like, I'm just a big like kind of advocate of the reason why I love soccer so much is because it's a player's game. You know, a coach can only do so much, because when the players step on the field and the starting whistle goes, players have to make decisions. And so it really makes me quite angry when I hear coaches on the sideline trying to play the game too much. And I understand coaches get really into it, and they're really only doing it because they love the game too, and they're trying to better everybody. But for me, like, that stresses me out. And there's a significant difference that I notice in playing. If a coach is yelling, I get really tensed up, and then I make mistakes. Like, I'll play a bad ball because my mind is sort of trying not to be distracted by this voice that is making me feel angry.
Right.
And so a thing that I do to combat that is I start to say positive things to other players. Like, if I hear the coach yelling, then I'll be like, Harlie, like that was a great pass, like great idea, or like I have to start like actually hearing positive things come out of me. Like I can't just do it in my head. I can't think like, oh yeah, like that was really good. Like no, I need to like hear it and reaffirm.
You have done that. I can confirm. Megan Warner does this. She has done this for me.
And that's definitely a huge thing that in the game helps to keep me calm on the pitch and helps me feel like I'm in an environment where I can be at my best. Because I know my person, like I know what I'm like, and that's not how I play best. But other players, you know, they like to be shouted at, and they like to have a coach who tells them what to do, and that's how they feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's what I'm saying. We're all different, but yeah, I'm definitely I need to positive, and I'll be that positive voice because I know my teammates need it, but I too need it.
Right, absolutely. You know, like, and again, there's like balance on the field, right? What you're giving out, like in theory, you should be kind of receiving back in a lot of ways. And I think it's really, really important to be able to identify these stressors. Like knowing what sets you off is a great way to like prepare against it, you know, to strategize in a way that like, okay, if this thing that I know makes me upset or freaks me out is going to happen, I know the steps I need to take to recover from that. And it's just as like physical health is important, like we do weight training so that when we step on the field, like a 6 foot, like 170-pound defender can't just like knock you clean out of your shoes because like you've been doing RDLs and like you got thick thighs to save your life. It's a good time. You know, like the weight training that you do to prepare your body is the same thing that you can do like for your mind. You can you know, prepare yourself to understand like the kind of things that are going to come your way. And maybe and that doesn't mean that you're not going to experience those stressors, but it might help you process them a little bit better.
Definitely. And it's a similar thing where, you know, you can't just go to the gym once and be, you know, super athletic, super strong, and you're playing better. No, it takes time. And that's the same thing with the mental side of the game. Like, I didn't just go into one game, hear somebody yelling on the field or on the sideline, and then get mad, start shouting positive things and feel better. Like, it wasn't just one game where that happened. That has definitely just sort of occurred over time where I've kind of realized. And so I really don't want viewers to think like, okay, next soccer match, like I need to listen out for and really think about the things that are triggering me or like affecting me mentally. And then next game, I'm going to be perfect because it's not like that. It takes a lot of time, and you have to put effort into the mental side of the game as well as the physical side of the game. And something that we did, Harlie and I in college, is we were reading this book, which some people, maybe they don't like reading books, and that's why there's so many other outlets as well. Like you've got YouTube videos, podcasts, whatever it may be, articles. But we were reading this book, and some people maybe thought, you know, why is the women's soccer team going in at 9 o'clock at night into the locker room, all holding a book and sitting around reading together? But it was because we were focusing on the mental side of the game, and that is just as important as going to practice and showing up and putting that effort into.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that book, like, you know, I know some of our teammates had some opinions about it, but like it was important, you know, and it's not something that was like without its merit because many of our teammates were going through like mental struggles. Like when we're not having easy seasons, when you're not winning the way that you want to be winning, when you're not getting the play time that you want to have, when maybe you experience injuries and that's keeping you from being the athlete that you know you can be. Those are all things that impact you, and like having resources such as that book or finding other things that can at least give you the tools to understand your emotions a little bit better is super, super important. And even if it might seem silly for like college athletes going into their seasons, like even if your coaches are doing something that you think might be a little bit silly, but if it's focused on your mental health, like do give it like a grain of salt, you know, really give it some consideration because it's so important. You know, it's not something that's just like one day you're like, okay, I'm just going to read this and that's it. You know, that's done. Like it is practice, as Megan said.
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of touched on something about the injuries and what we can recommend to do in situations where we're struggling with our mental health, and injuries is something that definitely does give you a big mental battle. A huge thing for me when I was going through my injury was, turning to the support of my family, my teammates, and my friends, because I needed people around me because I'd lost I wasn't able to play the game of football, which is a huge part of my life. And so suddenly that void was missing, and I really needed the support around me to kind of keep my spirits high and fill that when I wasn't able to play. And another thing that I just want to speak about real quick when I was injured is that I still turned up to every single practice, every single match, every single social activity. And when you're going through an injury, it's very easy to just shut yourself away. Maybe going to practice makes you feel really, really sad because you're not a part of being able to partake in that practice. And that's something that is really, really upsetting. But I personally feel that it's important to still go to practice, still go to the matches, and not to separate yourself, because otherwise you become uninvolved in your team. And while it may feel like that's the better option because I can't watch a game of soccer, I can't, see my friends playing and not be a part of it, you need their support. And when you're on your road to recovery and you're getting close to being back to the game, if you haven't been with your teammates for, those 3-4 months, even longer, 8 months maybe, when you come back, you almost feel like an outsider because you don't know your teammates the way that they know each other. And so a huge piece of advice that I would give to somebody going through an injury is do not separate yourself from the game, even if it is hard to see. Please go to the practices and the matches. And I can tell you from my personal experience, that really helped me.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of that, that goes back to the idea of like control the things you have control over, and you have control of over like what you're putting into the game still. Like recovery time, you don't really have a lot of control over that. Like you do your physical therapy every day, that's going to help you get better faster, but still there's always a waiting period. But being there for your team, there are other things that you can do besides just being a soccer player. Like as Megan like does during the game when like things are happening for her, like she decides to exude positivity. That's what changes things for her. And like, and I think that's something that can be seriously considered when you are injured and you don't have the ability to play, and you can't change that. Like change other things, change how your teammates are feeling, like just like by being there, by being friends for them. Maybe help out your coaches, like figure out what they need like before a game. Like it's not being a team manager or anything, but it's being there in a supporting role, and that helps you stay integrated with your team so that you don't feel like an outsider. Because
you can still learn. If you kind of
Mhm.
take up a more supporting system of the coaching staff, you can learn from them. And it's really amazing the knowledge that a coach has that sometimes as a player you don't fully appreciate because you listen to them, but you also are focusing on your game and like you're thinking about, oh, who's on my team while the coach is talking about the drill or whatever it is.
Right.
And you really pay attention to the reason why. You speak to the coach and he says, okay, we're going to work on flank play for this reason, this. You can really begin to learn and kind of develop a bigger understanding of the game, which could help you in the future. You kind of have to look for those silver linings of positivity that can help you realize why this has happened to you and what you can learn from this experience, which is so much more than just, rehabbing an injury.
Yeah, absolutely. And also in terms of that, prioritize short-term goals. Sometimes we can kind of get lost in the big picture of just like, okay, in 6 months I'll be able to play again. But between then and 6 months later, like what are you doing? And so finding like little goals to be happy and proud of. So like if you're experiencing like an ACL injury, like being able to walk properly, that's a huge goal. Being able to get like full mobility of your knee back, that's a huge goal. Just like trying to figure out like, okay, I didn't have a lot of pain today, like that's a goal. So like finding like short attainable goals makes you experience like more sense of accomplishment along the road, so that it's not just like one big thing that you're aiming for. Like there's little things that help you get there, and makes you like, when you're looking back, you're like, when you have bad days after a certain period of time, you can look back and be like, well, I have accomplished all these things. It's not like I'm not that far out of reach. I'm not at square one. I've built a very serious lead away from like where I once was. So that's something that definitely helps for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh, and then also, we have talked about this a little bit, but also like finding balance with your identity. Like, don't connect all of your self-worth to your athleticism. Finding a balance through, like, if you're not able to play, like, find creative or social outlets. And again, that just goes back to like being integrated with your team and, you know, finding support in the people that you know like do care about you. That's something that's so huge.
Definitely.
Okay, I think we're almost like ready to wrap things up here. So we have some like final message. Meg, if you wanted to say the little first thing, if you'd like, or
Yeah.
say your own thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, sport is this incredible thing that we all love and we put so much time into it. But, you know, there is times where we have to just take a step back and realize that life is more than our sport. We are people. We are not just there to run around a field or whatever sport we are playing to just do that only action. There is so much more than that. And although it's great to build this grit of, I'm never going to give up, I'm going to give everything I can every time I step on the field, sometimes there's a time and a place where we realize that maybe me stepping on the field is not the best thing for me. And that could be because we have a physical injury, but that also could be because we have a mental need as well. And whatever reason it is absolutely fine. And nobody can tell you what to do in those situations. The same way with, you know, when the athletic trainer says to you, well, how does your ankle feel? Do you think you can play? They need your opinion on that, just as you have to give your opinion on your mental health. If you don't think you can step on the field, that is okay. And then maybe, you know, there's times where stepping on the field is that outlet that helps you deal with that mental struggle. And that's fine too. Step on that field. You have to know your body and don't feel the pressures of society and the world making you think you have to do one thing instead of the other. You are your own person. Nobody knows your body better than you. And so take care of yourself and love yourself, because I'm almost positive, well, I am positive your teammates do, because they need you and they want you in the best place mentally and physically. So whatever your need is, take care of yourself and know that there's other people out there looking out for you, and everybody just wants you to be the best that you can be, whether that's on the field or off the field in whatever capacity. And Harlie, I know you've got some incredible resources that people can turn to for mental health.
Yeah, so there is a national suicide prevention hotline, and the number for that is 800-273-8255. It's 24 hours a day. But also something that's really unique about that is that if you're not comfortable talking on the phone, you can also go online and they have a chat option so that you can just, you know, you don't have to really speak to somebody. You can just be just texting them, you know, and that sometimes it's easier for people. There's also online platforms, which is really, really cool. Making therapy more accessible and affordable. Sometimes it's kind of intimidating. It's like, where do I start? You know, who am I going to talk to? And there are resources that are like growing and you know, getting more attention, such as there's one site called BetterHelp, and then there's another one called Talkspace. And these are sources that are like with licensed professionals who are able to talk to you about like any variety of issues, ranging from, you know, athletic performance to just like the daily struggles that you're experiencing. And then finally, for those of you who are in school, whether it's like high school or college, your school should be providing like counselors for you that are resources that technically your tuition is paying for. So if you are experiencing struggles on the field, off the field, after the field, use those resources, because I guarantee you, like, it is worth it. You know, even if it's just like, you know, recenter yourself and get someone to, you know, give you an outside opinion that's not so connected to the game, you know, to remind you of your self-worth, or give you the tools to figure out how to strengthen your own mental health. Those are just like some resources. And also, you know, like, it doesn't hurt to talk to your friends and family. You know, sometimes it's hard to do that, but I guarantee you, like, You have some people in your life that will listen to you and do care about you and just want the best. So that's what we got.
Definitely. And thank you to everybody who has joined us today. We'd like to give a special shout out, as always, to the UWS and the UWS2, and also Jonathan Ward for helping us bring the #1 show dedicated to women's soccer to your screens. Please follow the show on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow the host individually. And if you'd like to get involved, please email us. We'd love to know your topics that you want us to talk about. If you want to be on the show, we'd love to have you. Just get involved, and thank you for all your support in women's soccer. It's just been incredible, and we hope you enjoyed the Olympics too.
Oh man, I sure did.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.